Hey all, freeze cracked here. Thought I'd do something different today. I'm gonna try and do some close videoing and make a valid attempt to try and stay in screen, but I don't know if that's gonna work or not. Stay in frame. First of all, I thought I'd do a little show and tell. I was hitting this rock yesterday. It was a big rock, but it's got these big fish eyes in it that I thought were pretty interesting. This is a really extremely tough rock, like don't finish this without hitting it kind of tough rock. But I thought that was interesting. So anyway, this was another rock that I was hitting that's got some very unusual material in it. And it's a challenge too, but I just stopped it there because I was, doing other stuff. And anyway, I thought I'd show you this because I can't remember if I showed this, talked to it. This is a really big, thick piece of bison, and you normally don't see this kind of stuff available. But I thought I would make the point that there's some bison, hump leather that's really, really thick that I've seen people use. But this is my secondary padding that I put underneath my primary thing here that's a lot thinner. And this stuff gets artificially cut to a certain thickness. When it's cut on both sides, I think it's called a split, like this one. But so you can find different thicknesses, and I try not to hit my leg at all, but just as a reminder, if you do hit your leg, you're killing your, if you hit your leg hard, you're killing your force. And if you hit your leg at exactly the same time as the rock, then you're not going to be sure how much of the force you actually put into the rock. I mean, you'll know if it ran well or not. But hitting your leg accidentally first is really bad because all you're doing is putting a big old bruise on your leg and not really doing anything for the rock. So I work in the air a lot, but if you're going to work on your leg, just make sure that you get your platform. If you have to, move on the back of your leg and raise your right elbow, or raise your swinging arm elbow up some and come in a more downward angle on it to make sure that you make contact with your platform, preferably just a slight fraction before you hit your leg, because once it hits your leg, you're stopping your force. Same thing goes with punching. If you're punching on top of leather or something like that, you got your punch where it's hitting the leather, it's gonna take away some of your force. But anyway, I noticed this is a flake of Georgetown, cortical flake. And as you can see right there, that was the platform, there's the bubble of percussion, and you get a cone on this side. Well, that same cone is inside the rock usually, the other side, because it's actually a cone, and so you frequently have damage in there. And I like to try and get these things off. I like to try and work those off and find out where the damage is and where it isn't, and get the thing stabilized and know that it's good flint before I do a lot more, because I want to know what I have to work with. Similarly, along those lines, you can see a seam right here. There's a crack right in here. So all this is going to probably just fall off because it looks like it goes almost all the way through. So I'll knock that off early and see what I have left. One of the things that I do that I've probably mentioned before at some point in the past, but when I'm working a flake like this, I prefer to have the thin end in the basal area and use the thick bulby end for the point. And the reason for that is that points are usually pretty easy to finish and control, and thin up there because they're narrow, and it's the easiest thing just about that you do normally is to make the point. So rather than try and doing a bunch of extreme careful thinning and saving width and all that kind of stuff to make that the base end, I just make the easier end the base end, and usually work like that. So anywho, I guess I'll start trying to do something. And I haven't been talking much to anyone yet today, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, so if I do this, I'm too far over in the screen. Hang on a second. If I lose you, I'll be right back. Okay. Let me see. I'm gonna make an effort. Okay, so that took that off. But now I notice I've got a bunch of sun glare on the ground. Try that. If I have to, I can go get a black mat. So that, that's what it is. Looks like it actually goes a little bit further, so I didn't get all of it there. Anyway, I'm moving a little slow. I'll try and speed up in a minute. All right, so I'm going to try and support a little bit and hit right there. It's not very well ground. Sharp edges tend to fail. I'm going to try and hit right here and cut off part of that. I did a little bit, but I caught it a tiny bit down from where I wanted to. There's a little more. There we go. As usual, I'm swinging a little weird because of that stand next to me. That divoted more than I expected, but it probably was due to that cone being in there somewhere. So now that I've raised that some, I'm going to try and hit in this way. And you saw I swung kind of hard. Well, the bulbs are dangerous because if you don't put a little bit of pressure on them and swing kind of hard, actually do some good and drive the flake, then you can easily end up climbing that hill and having it be an issue. So I try and get fairly aggressive with it. As you can see, it's really thick. It's really thick under here. So I want to be fairly aggressive. And that, came to here and it's flat. And the reason it's flat is because I had pressure on that and undercut the hump. Which really, I'm hitting almost at the center line, but I'm just barely catching it and trying to really drive it. So now in a few hits, you can see it's flattened quite a bit. It's still not flat, but I'm raising it just a tiny bit. I do that a lot and run successive sets when I have a hump. It's just take a flake, take a flake, take a flake, raise it up a little bit, get rid of the deltas, grind it again, take a flake, take a flake, take a flake, and you can keep doing that if you're careful to manage the removal and not do it all at once. Okay, so you can see that, and hopefully you can sort of see that. Let's see what we can do. I'm trying to just barely catch it. Catch it just enough to take the flake I want, but no more. That'd work pretty good. So really, for all practical purposes, that bulb isn't a bulb anymore. Now, if I wanted to, I never show y'all being really careful. If I want to do things very carefully, there's a little bitty ridge right there, and I could do little isolations there, cross grind that really well with a very fine abrader, and use my indirect and drive one all the way underneath that and come on down. And as I think I've said before, the reason that I don't do that I guess you could say part of it's a failing on my part with not having patience. But the other thing is people who nap a lot, and if they have napped a lot, find out that they don't want to take 4 hours to make a point. They don't want to do a bunch of tedious little junk in initial reductions where the results of that effort are not going to be part of the finished point anyway, so who cares? The only time that you really end up caring is if you do something that you personally, with your own skill level at that point in time, can't fix. And yeah, if you mess yourself up with something you can't fix, it's a problem. I just noticed, if you look, it pays to pay attention to these rocks too. If you look right here, there's a little flaw right there. And you say, ah, no big deal. Well, here's where it could be a big deal. See that? All the way down to here. If that seam goes all the way almost through and isn't healed at all, you can sort of see it right in here. If it isn't healed, then it'll fail and it'll steal about 1/3 of the width from me, and I'll have to work that square edge off and move the point over to here. So we want to know that fairly soon. I almost didn't want to make a video because when wifey gave me a tangerine thing or tangelo for lunch, and when I peeled it I got yellow under my fingernail, so please ignore my yellow fingernail. It has nothing to do with personal hygiene and everything to do with personal health from eating citrus. I think I'll run a flake backwards there. Just these where are you? Hang on. All these irregular areas on the surface, you know, the cortex on Georgetown stuff kind of blends in. It's almost like it's partially mixed with the rock when the rock formed. And so you do not have any way, until you get it all off, you have no way of knowing how thin the cortex is and where the rock starts and if the cortex penetrates into the rock a ways. So by getting a flake this thin to show you, I may have messed up because I may not have enough good flint in there to do anything particular with, but we shall see. Okay, so now I'm going to hold this here. I'm going to start. I'm actually hitting it on the corner of this with a slight angle inward to try and push the cortex flake inward a little bit, and that lipped off. And it initiated probably right there at where that little seam is. But again, I don't have a lot of work into this flake yet. So when I'm trying to hurry and do things in the initial reduction, I'm not risking as much as if I had 2 hours worth of work into the thing. See how I'm knocking those forward? Okay, just because of the time, I'm going to stop and come right back.